What's up? Welcome to another video. Thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'm gonna be discussing a question almost everyone has asked themselves since all of human history, and that is, what is true happiness? Right? True happiness. How I came to make a video about this topic is I posted on my channel for people to, in the comments, leave questions about life they have, so I can then make videos about answering them, exploring these ideas, these questions, and see if together we can come to any insights, make any progress on these questions. Now, this particular question is a question that I've dedicated most of my time for the past few years to, reading various spiritual texts, meditating, just being mindful of my thoughts, feelings, whatever. Just something I've spent a lot of time on. What is true happiness? So, whoever commented that question, thank you. That's a great question, and I'm really excited to unpack it in this video. I have no definite plan on how to tackle this topic. I just sort of plan to see where this conversation takes us. I might take long breaks during talking to just let whatever arises come to me and to explore in our own experience, in our own life, what true happiness really is. So stay tuned, watch this entire video, and I'm sure that we're gonna come to some definite, useful insights about this question. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, what is true happiness? Let's take a second for that to sink in. True happiness. When are we happy? What is happiness? Is it a feeling? Is it a feeling? Is it a lack of unhappiness? Perhaps. Maybe it's not a feeling. Maybe it's the sense of ease we feel when nothing is wrong. Are we happy when we get something, or is that just pleasure? Is happiness pleasure? If happiness is pleasure, if happiness is getting what we want, then it's not permanent. Then it's not true happiness. Let's just define it real quick. I feel like true happiness must be unshakable happiness. Happiness that doesn't go away when the conditions for its arising go away. So pleasure and pleasant experience can't be happiness. But many people believe that getting what they want is gonna make them happy, right? So if we look at it that way, happiness is some far off, distant goal for many people that they're gonna only achieve when all of the conditions they have set for themselves are fulfilled. But here's the catch. Even if all of your wishes, desires are fulfilled, you still die. Even that's not permanent happiness. That still depends on you being alive. So when your time to go comes, I'm pretty sure if your idea of happiness depends on that, then when your time to go comes, your happiness is gonna also go. So true happiness must be something that doesn't depend on anything, really, right? Now, what does that mean? Happiness, something that doesn't depend on anything. Well, let's look at what makes us unhappy. Let's give a hypothetical. Let's say we really Let's just sit for a second. We really want something. Let's say we're hungry and we really want to eat, but there's nothing to eat. Because we feel that something is lacking right now in this moment, we feel unhappy. So we make a move. We move towards that which will satisfy us, in this case, food. And then when we get it, our needs are fulfilled. We no longer need anything. And then for a moment, we feel happy. We feel satisfied, right? I would be willing to equate happiness with this unhappiness with dissatisfaction. So let's equate happiness with satisfaction. We feel satisfied, we feel complete, we feel like there's nothing lacking. So is happiness a feeling, like a pleasant bodily feeling, or is that just pleasure? See, if happiness was a feeling, that means it's always going to be temporary, because feelings are temporary. Feelings come and go due to conditions, right? Let's say you like chocolate. You eat that chocolate, it tastes good, you feel nice. Then when you eat it, the feeling is gone. And maybe you're even satisfied for a little bit, but eventually you're gonna want chocolate again and you're not gonna be happy. Or maybe, let's say you have a car, but you want a better car, and you're not even happy with your current car because it's not the car you want. So you're unhappy because, again, your desires are not fulfilled. So again, I ask, is happiness a feeling? Or is happiness just the natural state when we're not grasping for anything, craving anything, wanting anything to be different? So, is there really such a thing as happiness? Does such a thing as happiness really exist? Or is that just the word we use to describe when we don't feel like anything's lacking? See, a lot of people, not on purpose, I'm not blaming anyone, but a lot of people seem to think that getting their needs fulfilled is going to make them happy. But all it does is, for a while, it takes away that feeling of grasping, craving, desiring something they don't have, right? So, in reality, is happiness really a feeling that something outside, something in experience, is gonna give you? Or is happiness just the natural state of not desiring anything, not clinging to your desires, the natural state of accepting the moment? You see, there's many words: peace, acceptance, surrender, nirvana, to describe this state of unshakable happiness, peace, satisfaction, right? But are those words really pointing at any particular feeling? Is happiness really any particular feeling? Or is it just our natural state when grasping ceases, when we stop wanting things, right? I don't know if I worded that perfectly, but all I'm trying to point at is, I'm not trying to give you any definitions for what happiness is. I'm trying to get you to see in your own experience what makes you feel happy and what makes you feel unhappy, right? Take a look at your life. At any times you felt unhappy. Was it really because of something that happened? Or was it because your expectations, your desires for the moment were not how you wanted them to be? Like, let's say, for example, it's hot outside and you're unhappy that you're feeling hot. Is that not just because you want to not feel hot, or you don't want to feel hot? So desire, aversion, same thing, just flip it around. Is that why you feel unhappy? So when the temperature reaches a level where you're satisfied, then you no longer feel unhappy, and we feel like, oh, finally, now I feel good, right? So I'm asking, is happiness really a feeling that we can achieve? Or is that just a word we use to describe a feeling of not needing anything in that moment, right? Does that make sense? Are you following along? Again, did I teach you anything, or am I just asking questions? I want you to, every time I ask a question, I want you to confirm it for yourself. Just take a look. What makes you unhappy? It's always wanting something you don't have. In every sense of the word, in every sense of these words possible. Like, let's say I cut off your arm. Pretty brutal. You're unhappy because you want your arm. I know that's, like, of course, everyone would want their arm, right? But that's what makes you unhappy. I had to give some sort of like really extreme example, right? But then, if we go by that logic, happiness is impossible. For a fact, you're gonna get old and you're gonna wanna be young. So you're gonna be unhappy. For a fact, you're gonna get sick and you're gonna wanna be healthy. So you're gonna be unhappy. For a fact, you're gonna die and you're gonna wanna live. So you're gonna be unhappy. There's gonna be many situations where things are not how you want them to be, right? Does that mean that true happiness is impossible? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just pointing out certain things that are inevitable. You can't deny that. You can't deny that you're gonna die, get sick, experience lack sometimes, right? So again, is there such a thing as happiness? Or is unhappiness the product of a feeling of lack, right? So we come back to true happiness. If we put all these things together, true happiness must somehow be never lacking anything, right? Because, again, if we look at our experience, what is happiness but feeling satisfied with the present moment, not wishing anything to be different, right? Just take a look. You see what I'm trying to say? Before I go along, I just want you to really see this. Like, don't listen to me, don't try to come up with any theories of what I'm saying, but just see this. See this simple fact that every time you feel unhappy, it's because something you wanted is not how you want it to be. You're not accepting the current moment in whatever shape or form it comes. The rejection, the resistance to what is what makes you unhappy. And now this is really funny, right? Because if that's the case, and happiness is not really a feeling of being satisfied, but the lack of feeling lack, however funny that sounds, then true happiness must be the ending of lack, the ending of grasping, the ending of clinging. And that sounds eerily similar to many spiritual descriptions of self-realization, enlightenment, nirvana. But again, those are just words. Words a lot of people cling to. Those words mean nothing when you point at your own experience, right? Those words are not meant to be clung to. Those are just the words that were available at the time for the people that were just trying to get people to see this. That it's not that they want happiness, they just want to stop feeling like something is missing. They want to feel complete. And even that's saying too much. So I'm saying is, true happiness is just a word. It doesn't point at any particular feeling or state. But if I had to put it into words, the best way I could put it is the ending of suffering. And why does suffering arise? Because of grasping, clinging, desire, wanting things to be different than they actually are, right? Is that not true? Did I speak anything that doesn't make sense, that you cannot immediately relate to your own experience? So, I hope that we have established now that happiness is not a feeling, but a state where clinging has ended, right? True happiness. And now we've established that desire or clinging is the root cause of unhappiness. But now, see, if you just try to stop clinging, give it a try, it's not gonna work. That's something I wouldn't say. You can't just choose to stop clinging, right? There's no really trick to it. But now we've established something nice. We figured out a sort of way to what true happiness is, right? A sort of way of being where there is no clinging to what is, therefore there is no rejection to whatever's happening in the present moment. And because there's no rejection, there is no suffering, there is no unhappiness. And because there is no feeling of lack, well, what is the opposite of feeling lack? You feel complete, you feel satisfied, because dissatisfaction comes from the feeling of lack, right? So now, I'm not just gonna leave you with this vague conclusion. I've pointed out that you could see for yourself, like I'm sure you can see what I was just talking about. This is self-apparent in your own experience, right? Every time you felt unhappy, I'm repeating myself, but because I really want you to understand this, I want you to see. I don't want you to intellectually comprehend what I'm saying and be like, that's true, and then go on living and suffering and clinging. I want you to see this, to really understand the words I just said, not intellectually, but with your own experience, right? Now if clinging comes to an end, if grasping, if desire comes to an end, isn't happiness just the same as peace? Because does peace even have an opposite? But what is the opposite of peace other than uneasiness because things are not how you want them to be? This is really important for you to see. That's why I'm making this video longer. That's why I'm really going into this, because I really want everyone who watches this video take away something. Every day I work at the gas station. I see so many people not satisfied with their life. Life can be hard. There is challenges, right? But it's how we tackle these things, how we look at these things that causes us to be happy or unhappy, right? If you just see that it's outside of your control and that it's silly to grasp at these things because it's like grasping at water, you can't do anything about it, then clinging would naturally come to an end, right? So how do we stop grasping? How do we stop clinging? By seeing that it's futile, right? Does that make sense? You can't consciously stop clinging because clinging arises due to conditions, right? And as long as those conditions persist, there can be no move you can do to stop it. So how do you stop it? That's the next question. Because if you want to truly be at peace, truly feel complete and satisfied, then you have to stop rejecting the present moment, which, due to your current conditions, doesn't seem possible because things in your present moment are not how you want them to be, and you don't see an end to this. Now, see, the root cause of, now we're getting into the real stuff, the root cause of clinging is false identification, the ego, psychological memory. See, if you look at your experience, your life is just a sequence of moments committed to memory, right? And your mind sort of builds a character around these memories, right? Let's say as a child you tasted a certain flavor of ice cream and it was really good, and then for the rest of your time you identified as, I like this ice cream, right? But did you choose to like this ice cream, or did just events happen where you liking this ice cream arose due to conditions, and then your thoughts, your mind weaved this narrative about it, where this seemingly existing person called you now likes ice cream, right? And now someone's gonna, let's say you go to another ice cream shop and they don't have this flavor of ice cream. And now you're not happy. No, but I like this ice cream. Why don't they have it? And you feel slightly dissatisfied, right? This is a very tame example, but can you see that it's like this with everything? This ego that everyone keeps referring to, that everyone wants to get rid of, is just a bundle of memories we attached identity to. Not even we, identity just weaved itself in. This ego is just a little character your thoughts are playing, right? And because of this character's preferences, this character's desires, when the present moment, which has nothing to do with this imaginary character, is not how this imaginary character wants it to be, resistance arises due to clinging to this identity, which is just a thought. And this resistance itself is suffering, is dukkha, is unhappiness, right? And if you were to just see that there is no one behind your desires, they are merely conditioned thought patterns arising, then you've seen through the trick, and there is no basis for the ego to arise anymore, because it was never real, more than just a tendency to think, I this, I like this, I don't like this, I want this, I don't want this. Just a thought, right? I want you to see this. That's the purpose of meditation, to see that everything arises due to conditions without any self behind it. See, this self everyone keeps talking about is just an idea projected onto a spontaneously arising experience. A sequence of events, even time, seemingly happens because your mind weaves a narrative of a character. We identify with the body, we identify with the mind, we identify with things that happen to us outside of our control. And we form these really strong identities around certain things. Let's say I like bleach, right? Now, if I were to identify as liking bleach, when someone would say, oh, bleach is ass, I would feel mad. I would feel unhappy. I would try to defend it, even though I had no actual control if I was gonna like or dislike bleach. It just arose. I watched it. It was nice. And that's it. You see how this identity we cling to is just a consequence of an unfolding of experiences, one giant movement of reality. The wind blows, the sun rises, things happen without anyone behind them. Yet the mind assumes that someone is behind you, someone is doing you, right? It creates a character, it creates a story. And within this story, reality sometimes contradicts what this imaginary character wants. And when that happens, resistance arises due to these conditions: false identity with an imagined self and clinging to desires. Not saying anyone clings, there is just clinging. Resistance arises, and then suffering arises, and then we're not happy. So when this is seen through completely, through just being mindful of your thoughts, seeing how they just arise, and you can't control them, you can't control your desires, you can't do anything about it. When you see that the whole desire to even end desire is fruitless, that there's no one controlling this, no one who can end being unhappy, no one who can be happy, no one who's doing any of it. When this is seen clearly, it's almost like a kid, right? When they're caught doing something they shouldn't. When the mind is seen through completely, it just stops. Maybe it takes a little bit of time because conditioning is strong, but when the trick is seen through, it stops. And then what is revealed? Something we call happiness. It's actually your natural state. You were always happy, my friend. The only thing keeping you from being happy was your own belief that you're unhappy with something. But there is no you to be unhappy, just a sequence of events happening due to conditions. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't lose anything because it never existed in the first place. You can't lose your ego. You can't, some people are like, oh, I need my ego to function in society. But is that true? See, here is where I would like to introduce the concepts of that Krishnamurti sort of invented, I feel like. I'm not sure. I'm just speaking this out of my ass. Okay, but like he used the term psychological memory and practical memory, right? See, this body still exists, this mind still functions, these memories are still real, but there's such a thing as practical memory and psychological memory. See, if I need to drive a car, I don't need an ego to drive a car. I remember how to drive a car. That memory exists. That's a practical memory. As long as no identity is tied to it, it's just a practical memory, skills, language, whatever, right? But when I attach identity to it, I'm a good driver. I know how to drive really well. And then someone says you're a bad driver, then you're offended, you're unhappy, right? You resist his words because it doesn't fit the narrative your mind has come up with. Can you see this? Can you see this for yourself? I just want you to see. That's why I'm doing these videos. I'm not doing them for any other reason than I feel bad for people suffering. They can't help it, but they can see, everyone can see. See, you don't have to cling to any concept of self or no self. It's only what's happening. It's just this. There is no experience more than this. If you're looking for an experience of awakening, a big shift where suffering is just gonna end, it's never gonna come. There's just what's going on, bro. It's just the experience. The only problem was this sort of false perception that experience is happening to someone. No one to have the perception. The perception also arose due to conditions. See, this is the Buddhist teaching on dependent origination. I'm not gonna get into that, but things arise due to conditions, to sum it up. So even this tendency to identify as a self arose due to conditions. It was conditioned by society, by language, by your upbringing, right? There's no need to put any labels on what you are. Who cares? Self, no self, normal, enlightened, that's nothing. Those are just words. Enlightenment is not an experience. There's no one who enlightens. There is just this. And when this is seen to be the case, when illusions fall away, when they're seen through, when the trick has been had, all that remains is the natural state of peace that everyone already has. You are already here. There's nowhere to get to. It's just a matter of, is there seeing or is there clear seeing? Because seeing is always the case, but is the seeing clear or is there perception first and then seeing due to the perception, right? When we put these labels on reality, me, them, others, then the illusion of separation arises. It's me versus them, me and reality. When we assume experience happens to someone, it's, oh, I don't like this experience, it's happening to me. But when we see it's all, even what I'm gonna say right now, I'm taking it back as I said, because even I'm just using words right now to describe something. I'm just trying to point, but when we see that experience is just one collective movement of what appears to be causes and conditions, right? Where is the self? Where is suffering? Who suffers, right? I think I've said enough. Of course, I'll be making many more videos on these kinds of topics. I'm gonna keep pointing. So subscribe if you want to see more. Share this video, like, comment. I want to hear your opinions on this. I want to start discussions. Comment video ideas, whatever. Engage with me. I want to engage with anyone who watches this. I love people. I love talking to people. I just, that's why I made this. That's what I like to do. Talk about these things, point at these things. That's what arises in this experience. If someone says you don't know what you're talking about, who cares? It lands, it's like punching air. Because that's how it always is, even for you. Only the thought of I am is the thing keeping you limited to being a self. There is no self, but there's also not no self. All of those labels are just labels for whatever is happening. And what's happening is beyond words. People say enlightenment is beyond description, but what it truly is reality itself. Experience itself cannot be described. It's not something anyone has ever achieved. If it were some state, it would be temporary. It would arise due to conditions. If something is unconditioned, it means it's always the case. It was always the case. No one to realize it, just realization. No one to see it, just seeing. It is just this. Whatever it is, whatever's happening, it's already beyond words. It's already complete. Where does your awareness start and mine end or mine begin? It's all just one movement, one beautiful movement. Indra's net. Everything is a reflection of the whole. And even those are just words. Do not let your mind cling to any words. See for yourself what the case is. Look in experience. Have great doubt. Doubt even what I'm saying. Don't believe it. Look for yourself. See if what I'm saying makes any sense to you. See if you can see it. See if you can see it too. And I sure hope you do. Because what's left on the other side, my friend? Just this. And it's just right. Exactly how it should be. Perfect. Even perfect is just a word, because that means it can be imperfect. It's literally just this. We use so many words to describe it when we can just take a little look and see. There was nowhere to get. There was no one suffering. There is no enlightenment. It's just whatever's happening. And when we fully accept it, then suffering comes to an end. And here it is, friend. True happiness, if you can even call it that. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in another video. Have a good rest of the day.